Welcome to our second role model webinar of the summer with the focus today on STEM explorations in medical technology. We have a fabulous lineup throughout June and July and hope you can join us weekly for panel discussions with current students, alumni, and STEM role models from our community. I'm Hannah Wesley, a student intern with Women in STEM within undergraduate college at the University of Texas at Austin. Today, we also have Rasmita helping us with the Q&A portion of our webinar. We will add all our Role Model Monday webinars to our Women in STEM YouTube channel and other videos to help future and current students. Subscribe to the channel to get notified when new videos are added. I'm throwing the link in the chat to subscribe now. Today, our focus is on STEM and medical technology. We will have each panelist share some quick introductions here just in a moment to get us started. After introductions, we'll have a facilitated panel with some pre-selected questions. We'll also take questions from you. Use the Q&A area to submit your questions at any time. Okay, so for our panelists, can we please have you guys' name, pronouns, hometown, major/degree, your year in your school or company organization, and a hobby outside of your work. And feel free to jump in whenever you guys are ready.
I can go first. I'm Allison Morgan. My pronouns are she, her. I am originally from Houston, Texas. I got my bachelor's of science in biomedical engineering at UT Austin, and then got my PhD in biomedical engineering at Virginia Tech. I currently work at a small organization called Pi Health, which is a medical technology company, was building a software platform designed to help accelerate clinical trials and bring about clinical trial diversity. And outside of school, or outside of work, I suppose, I spend most of my time with my two toddlers, but I do play the flute and piccolo. I played while I was at Texas, and I still keep it up today. And thank you both for organizing such a wonderful panel today. I'm really excited.
Thank you so much.
I can go. Hello, everyone. I'm Kelly Van Scowen. My pronouns are she, her. I'm originally from Waco, Texas. Went to UT, got my architectural engineering degree back in 2001, and then followed up with an MS, also from UT, in biomechanics in 2012. So I initially spent 9 years in construction, project management with that architectural engineering degree. After my master's, I've been in medical device clinical trials. So Allison, looks like we are in the same industry. I've been doing medical device clinical trials since 2012, mostly in the spine space. So medical devices for your back and your neck. And outside of work, man, I like running. I love hiking. I like building things still. I do a lot of stained glass as a hobby, crocheting some things. But yeah, just love spending time with friends, family, and being outside and then doing projects. And I'm also excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We're so happy to have you.
All right. Hello, I'm Erin Lynn. My pronouns are she, her also. I live in Pflugerville, Texas, just north of Austin. I got my bachelor's in biomedical engineering from UT. And I now work for GE Healthcare, which is a large global medical device technology company. I've worked there my whole career, 15 years now. So outside of work, I too spend a lot of time with my two kids. But when I can, I like to do some yoga or some bar fitness classes. So thanks for having me.
Okay, I love hearing about you guys and the work that you're doing and your background. So let's start with STEM and medical technology together. As we know, that STEM is vital in innovations pertaining to medical technology. Can you each talk about how your STEM backgrounds contribute to your work in making medical technology advancements?
Sure, I'll jump in. I'm looking to see who's unmuting first. Um, so for me, I would say the way I use STEM every day now is problem solving and finding creative solutions. And I think that's what STEM in school taught me, is that there's a lot of ways to get to the right answer. So you have to think creatively, you have to be able to stick with the problem for a long time. Problems don't just solve themselves, and you don't always have someone to solve for you. So I think you know, spending time in engineering, spending a day and a half trying to solve an engineering problem and just saying I'm not going to give up and I'm going to find the solution. I think that's a lot of the tenacity that I have now. Owning my own business and running clinical trials is a challenge, but creative problem solving and then just sticking with my problems for a long time, making sure I get them solved, not leaving them hanging. And I think the ability to just put the pieces together, right, is a huge thing. See the big picture and put it all together and be able to solve.
Yeah, I completely agree. STEM that you learn at school is about learning a way of mind and learning about a mindset of, I can tackle any problem that comes my way, and I have the tools in my toolkit to apply all of that knowledge. So, for me in particular, I got my degrees in science and then I went a completely different pathway. But my way of mind and my way of thinking has led to my success in my career, is because, I can think about anything. I personally believe that I can solve any problem. If there's a problem, I can solve it. If there's work that can be done, I can do it. And I think that mindset has really accelerated my career personally. And I definitely attribute that to some of the ways of thinking and the ways of learning that happens when you have a degree in STEM. So I completely, wholeheartedly agree that it is all about, your mindset and your way of working. And there are a lot of things that I learned in school that, I can draw back on as, I'm growing in my career. But a lot of times things in STEM change so quickly that the topics and the individual facts and pieces of information you learn in school, are going to become irrelevant. For me in particular, something that has really changed the face of our company and the way that we're doing work is AI. And that's happened in the past couple of years. We didn't learn about AI when I was in school, but it's something that you've had to learn and adopt as you're continuing on in your career. So, definitely that learning mindset, approaching everything as a problem that can be solved and taking every opportunity to learn and grow, has really where the STEM foundation has had success for me.
I of course agree, but I just want to add, like I like to say, I haven't really held a true engineering job, in my 15-year career, but I interact with lots of engineers and lots of very technical people. And so, but I always feel like I have a lot of value, like having that engineering degree and kind of having that mindset of a problem solver and very technical. It really just helps me then connect and solve problems across different functions. So when there's problems with quality, problems with design qualification, with things going on that interact across different groups, I'm able to have those kind of detailed conversation with people that I don't directly work with. So a lot of what we call it cross-functional engagement in industry. So that's where I think there's a value in having that STEM education, even if you don't go down what quote unquote is a traditional STEM path. So.
Yes, exactly. I like how you guys all touched on how STEM has really shaped the way that you approach problem solving and has influenced you throughout your career. So, can you guys tell us a little bit more about your role and the work that you do? And how does that design thinking come into play within your work?
I can kick us off this time. So as I mentioned, I work for a small startup company called Pi Health. We are building a technology platform that's designed to accelerate clinical trials and also help to expand clinical trial diversity. So I am the clinical research staff lead, which is on our product and clinical research team, essentially function as a chief of staff, which is essentially a project manager. But really my role in the organization is to get my hands dirty, make sure people have what they need and have the tools that they need to do their jobs, but then also step into any problem or situation that we might encounter. And this to me is the absolute perfect job for me. I never have 2 days that are exactly the same, and I'm able to shift mindsets go working from one problem to another problem in a moment's notice. And I absolutely love it. And for us, as we're approaching thinking about how to accelerate clinical trials by leveraging technology, our software platform that we're building is designed to help investigators who have never run a clinical trial before have an out of the box experience so they understand everything that is expected of them in a clinical trial, while also collecting really high quality data and lowering the risk that you would need, that you would see from a pharmaceutical company perspective. And so design thinking is extraordinarily important for what we're doing because we have to empathize with all of the parties that are involved in a clinical trial. We need to understand the patient's perspective of somebody who's going to be enrolling on a clinical trial. We need to understand the physician's perspective of, do I have the right resources? Do I have the right staff? How can I support these patients be successful on a trial? And then we also need to empathize with the pharmaceutical companies or the sponsors of the clinical trial, and understand, they want to reach these patients. They want to have access for these patients to get new drugs or new technologies. But there is quite a large risk involved if you're going to a brand new site that has never run a clinical trial before, and the monetary and compliance risk associated with that is challenging a lot of times. So our role is to help bridge that gap, reduce some of the risk that's associated with that, and really help bring the parties together to increase access, increase diversity all across the world. And so for me, being able to, switch hats into thinking, okay, I'm a physician, what are the tools that I need? I'm a patient, what are the things that I need? I'm a sponsor, what kind of data? How do I de-risk this for myself? Are really important. So really for us, design thinking is obviously a core part of what we do, but really that empathize step is really essential as we're thinking about all the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, I can jump in. So similarly, sounds like Allison and I do very similar things. I own a company called Research Source. So many years ago, I found a need, and I do credit my STEM background with identifying the need where in medical device, a lot of your patients come from private centers, so private physician practices. And as Allison just mentioned, they're not set up for doing research. So how do you integrate with those clinics and make them successful on a clinical trial? I've been in clinical research since 2012 after getting my degree, and I was initially on the sponsor side. So I was on the side that makes the devices. And we saw that, if we had 24 sites throughout our study, 10 of those sites enrolled 85% of those patients, right? So you had all these unsuccessful sites, not just compliance problems, but just unsuccessful, right? They couldn't enroll patients. What was going on with those sites? So I saw the need and said, well, let me go to the site side of things, really learn how this works. How does the site, how do they operate? So I got in and just I worked in it, but I really tried to understand all aspects of how it runs. So from the budgeting and contracting all the way down to how do you collect the data. And that's where I found, wow, there's a huge need here, and I can help solve this, and I can put together a team to solve this. So there started my business back in 2019, and everything had to be created, from a payroll system, to hiring my first staff, to setting up all the systems and processes that we use every day now. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned, is that what you do 5 years ago matters today. So the pre-planning in STEM was essential for me to understand that I can't just make a decision on a whim. It has an impact 5 years later. Now I have 12 employees all using those functionalities, those processes that are set up, and it starts to really show where there's errors or where there's inefficiencies or deficiencies in the systems. So I used a very much a design approach to understand, how do I set this up and make it scalable? Right? So if you go into STEM and you're manufacturing a widget, same idea. How do I manufacture thousands of these widgets with the least cost, the most efficient manner, the least amount of waste and deficiencies or QC problems? I looked at my business the same way. It's just setting up a process and using the right systems to be able to do research at these clinics. It's fun, right? It's problem solving, it's creating, it's not always the problems you would think as a STEM background, like an engineer. I'm not solving the problem of a widget that doesn't fit within another widget. I am solving, how did our QC miss this issue, right? How did budgeting miss this issue? How do we keep our investigators, our surgeons engaged in the process? How do I find them more studies? How do you staff so that you can make money, right? You've got to, as a business, everybody has to have revenue. So my problems became different problems, but I think I approached it with that design mentality of, if I design this thing, does it withstand the test of time? So yeah, that's my answer.
All right. So, like I said, I work for GE Healthcare, which is much different, a very large global medical device company. You might have to Google it if you don't know what it is. But GE Healthcare, large conglomerate, they make medical devices, so CTs, X-rays, MRI machines, a lot of smaller like patient devices as well. So global company, I work with people around the globe. I'm a global product manager. And so that means I have a portfolio of products that I own. And I like to think of product management as kind of in the middle, between lots of different groups, with engineering, with finance, with marketing, kind of cross section between different things. I work with all those different groups. So my portfolio of products is unique as well, because I have the portfolio of products that we call accessories to MRI systems. So an MRI is a big magnet that you can scan and get images of your inside of your body. And so that magnet, if you think about it, the patient that goes through that scanner that gets the image taken, there's a lot of things that's needed to do that scan of that patient. Those things are accessories. You've got different pads and straps to hold the patient in place. They will usually have a music system so that you can listen to music, wear big headphones. It protects your ears as well as provides entertainment. So all of those accessories are my products. So ironically enough, I work with other companies. We buy their products and then we sell them with our devices. But there's a lot that goes into making sure that those products are safe and that they're not going to interfere with the MRI machine. So all of that kind of comes into my world. What products am I going to offer, and working with the different groups to make sure that they're compatible. Like I said, I work with our MR engineers quite a bit to understand a lot of the details of how these things interact together, what's critical to image quality, what's critical to patient safety, And then anytime there's a change to the product, so in the past we've had things where the headphones are, we can no longer get the core, base material for the headphones. They have to make a change. All of that kind of goes into how do we test that? How do we make sure it's not going to impact image quality? So again, I'm not the engineer, but it's my product. And if I want to make sure it still gets sold and that patients can get, customers can get it, I have to work with the supplier and engineers to make that happen. So that's what I do.
Lovely. I loved hearing about the work that you guys are doing. So, my next question is, how did you learn or gain skills in design thinking? And of course, what recommendations do you have for current or future STEM students?
Oh, sorry. So I learned a lot of my skills about design thinking on the job. But there are some other kind of tangential activities that I've done that have helped hone my skills in that area. So when I joined Pi Health, I took a Scrum Master training, which is a project management technique that's used in software development. And a lot of the principles of design thinking actually are principles of Agile and Scrum as well. And so a lot of those formal trainings ended up being part of my skills in design thinking. But, I really think that foundational problem solving and things that you learn in school during STEM are building up your skills in design thinking. So I would recommend that everyone view everything that you do in school, everything that you do for a job as a potential learning experience. It could be the most mundane of tasks, but if you think of a new way to do it or an innovative way to do it, then you're learning something along the way. Figuring out how to gain efficiencies in things that need to be gained, or even approaching a brand new topic that you've never approached before. That mindset and that way of thinking can really shape how successful you are. I really believe that approaching things with a mindset of learning and growth, no matter what the task is, will always make you successful.
Yeah, love those answers. I would say I approach it with maybe three top things, which is questioning. So I ask a lot of questions. I try not to take things just at face value. I think the industry that I'm in, we're a little bit archaic in some of our systems and processes, and people don't ever stop to ask why. And so I think I do still a lot of asking why. Why do we do that? Is it based in a regulation that we have to follow? If so, is there another way to do that? Right? Or is it not based in a regulation? Is it just something outdated that everybody's just done that way? And it's time to make a change, right? So to me, biggest thing is questioning, is how I keep honing in my skills and keep gaining extra knowledge, is just ask the question and do the research myself if someone doesn't know the answer. And then I practice. So I say that meaning I take continuing education. I have a clinical professional licensing that I have to go do every couple of years, make sure that I'm keeping up to date on all those. So you can go to conferences, do things where you're honing in on that as well. Just keeping your skills relevant and current. Things do change, regulations change, lots of things change, but in our case, lots of regulations can change. So keeping up to date with those is good. Software, oh my gosh, the software changes that are happening in this industry are incredible. So you go to those different conferences to learn what's coming, what's here that I didn't know about, and then what's coming. And then I think the third thing for gaining skills in design thinking is one that a lot of us are very much afraid of, but figuring out how to be okay with failure and mistakes, and what do you gain from them. I tell a lot of our staff, And I give them the reasoning why, but I tell them this document was created because of a mistake. So we've already made this mistake and we've created this document so that this mistake never happens again. So please learn from our mistake and then go make your own. Because you're gonna go find another way to make a mistake, I promise. And then we're gonna use that to learn something new. So it's become a part of not daily life exactly, but just part of life and part of career growth, that if I'm afraid to make a mistake, we're never going to get to where we want to be. We're never going to move forward. So those are the three things I think that I hone in on to practice, and be okay with, especially the last one. Nobody likes to make mistakes. And I think if you're looking at STEM, I'm making a big assumption here, but you're likely very much like the three of us panelists here, probably a little perfectionist, don't really like failure, don't like mistakes, but the more comfortable you get with them, I think the more you grow.
I was just thinking, kind of, what have I done like to grow my skills? I was like, so I would say like early on in my career, just like what you guys said, I would ask all sorts of questions, you know, very early, fresh out of college. I felt like I didn't know anything, but I really made sure to just ask lots of questions. And luckily I felt like I was in a good space where people just encouraged that. And I learned to just go talk to other people. You know, thinking back a little bit too, I always jumped at the chance to do just additional kind of leadership type trainings, whether they be, you know, online or in person, just learn some of that skill set about leading teams, change management, just kind of learned through some of those things. Those were all kind of good experiences early on in my career. And then just as I've gone on, like continuing to just ask those questions and not being afraid to kind of step up and start to lead something, even if it's not something I'm like directly told, oh, you're leading this, but just kind of stepping up and saying, you know, somebody has to kind of figure this out and kind of take the lead to organize things and start to sort things out. Just kind of learn by doing. I always kind of point back. I had a big, we call it CAPA. I think most people in industry, corrective and preventative action. my friends are nodding. So we had a pretty big CAPA that like wasn't directly in my space in manufacturing, but I learned a lot because, you know, it was such a big deal. I ended up leading the CAPA, and like the experience I got from kind of leading that and having to like then, you know, assign tasks and delegate tasks and, you know, follow up with people, understand their challenges to getting things done. I learned a lot just leading that CAPA, which was, you know, not really at all, you know, on my job description, so to speak, but just a good experience. So that's, don't be afraid to jump in. So.
I really loved hearing that from you guys. Like every sort of job that you do, every opportunity is a learning experience. And it's important to have that space where you can learn from your mistakes, and feel empowered to take on new projects. So, my next question is I want you guys to tell our attendees about a specific project or product that you've worked on that can give them a glimpse into your day to day STEM and work life.
Sure, we can go in order. So as I kind of alluded to, my Pi Health is developing a piece of a really big platform, technology for collecting clinical trial data. So I have been on many different sides of this project. I've been with Pi Health for several years, and I've had several different roles in the organization. So I've been able to kind of harken back to all kinds of different things that I learned in school. I'm not a software developer, but I know just enough software language to be dangerous with a room of software developers. So I helped translate a lot of the content and the things that we needed in the platform to software developers. And so understanding the different communication mechanisms that work best for different people has been a really interesting experience and a big learning curve, I would say. So I'll just give an example. So we, as we're developing this software, we have people on our staff who know a lot about medical or clinical trials. They've worked at pharmaceutical companies, they've run big global clinical trials, and then they're working with people whose entire lives have been, this is how you code a database, and this is how you create an interface for a software platform. And we wouldn't expect them to know anything about clinical trials. And we, as the people who understand clinical trials, know nothing about how to put our hands on a keyboard and code. So my role for a while here was to help translate and answer questions as they're, why did you set up the workflow this way? Why would I be clicking this button instead of this button? And it could be as simple as like, oh, well, we're trying to gain efficiencies, or it could be something where it's like, this is actually a really big compliance issue as you're running clinical trials, and it's actually really important that you do it in a certain step. So, being able to translate what people are talking about in different groups has been a very interesting learning experience, and I would say one that has really shaped my career at Pi Health. And has in a really positive way. So, I never thought that my CE class from 2008 at UT was ever going to play a role in my career, but as it turns out, it has. So, like I said before, everything's a learning experience. And if you approach everything as I can learn this and I can retain it, and someday maybe it'll be important for the future, that has actually been really valuable for me.
So, goodness, so many projects that I've worked on in clinical research. But to give everyone a sense of the area that I work in, I'll tell you about one specific one recently that's been really rewarding to be a part of. And it's a device that they are studying to help with autoimmune disorders. So that has historically been treated with drugs. As we all know, lots and lots of drugs, lots of different cocktails of drugs to try to treat autoimmune disorders. We were specifically looking at rheumatoid arthritis, so a pretty debilitating disease. This company created a vagal nerve stimulator, which isn't a new technology by any stretch. It's just a revamp of older technology, right? So they really, I think one thing that's changing very quickly, as you all know, is technology. So the technology to be able to create a more robust stimulator at a smaller size that operates with more consistency than older devices. It's easily implanted, explanted, which older ones didn't have that functionality. They were very difficult to implant, to explant, all of those things. But this company, I mean, they're all in STEM, right? The CEO, the COO, everybody, the chief scientific officer, they all came from STEM and said, we have a need, we can do something with this. So they created this device and then had a unique problem to solve in the fact that they needed a rheumatologist physician and they needed a neurosurgeon or some sort of head and neck surgeon to do these implants. So as Allison was saying, these clinical trials aren't always simple to solve. So how do you then figure out how to get rheumatologists that then can partner with the neurosurgeons? In our case, I was working with the neurosurgeon, so we were one of the surgical sites, and it was unlike any study I've ever done in order to get this to happen. But we treated ultimately about 25 patients, which in device is a huge number of patients. We worked with actually 4 different rheumatology doctors here locally in Austin, in and around Austin. We had some down in San Antonio even, but to find the neurosurgeon to do the implant, they had to come to Austin for that. So we had a lot of things we had to solve, but it was really fun and rewarding. They're submitting to the FDA, for final approval. So it's already, you guys could Google and probably figure out who it is. I'm not breaking any rules here. They're public, they're out in the public. The clinical trial was very public, and they're submitting to the FDA. And I think we can all understand the implication here. If something like that were to work really well and be approved, we could change the industry. So that's a specific project that I've worked on that I think really stood out for me. We work on tons of protocols. We do cervical discs, where your neck, you start not being able to use your arm right, things like that. We do those. And I guess I would say on every study we do, I just seeing the patients, seeing their outcomes is what drives me to continue to do it. And that's what we do as a business. We are on site with the patients, seeing their outcomes, collecting their data, seeing how they're doing, getting to know them, and understanding how these devices have changed their life. And everything goes through iterations, but I am so excited to be at the forefront of some of these things, and seeing patients' lives changed because of it. So, but that's one that stood out for me. So there's so many.
All right. So just to give you a little more flavor for what I do. So I said I'm a global product manager. GE Healthcare is a large global conglomerate. I'm based in the US. And so much of what I kind of work on and do is all kind of around, I kind of hark back to the theme of, we're a global company, but for quite a large, long amount of time, we've kind of operated in our own countries. In the US, we do things for the US. We're very US focused. And then, if you work in Europe, you're very Europe focused, or you're in France and you're very France focused. As a company, we're trying to standardize a lot of things. We're trying to find efficiencies, trying to be standard on how we work globally, and to kind of take advantage of, being the same and being consistent to save costs, to be more efficient, just be more consistent, and provide, that consistent level of service and quality globally. And so much of what I'm doing is trying to take what we've done in the US for decades, and how do we either duplicate that or make the equivalent in other parts of the world. In the US, we're just so well established in just how we do everything, and how we sell product and how we service product, in what we offer. And then, so, all of my portfolio of products, I'm maintaining a lot of my products that I sell in the US, but then I'm trying to develop and figure out what are we going to sell that's either the same or equivalent in other parts of the world. I've recently, my example product, I would say, thing that I've worked on most recently, an MRI system actually needs a cooling system because it generates a lot of heat. And there's different ways to provide that cooling system. And one of the most kind of popular items is to have an outdoor chiller, which is kind of like a big air conditioning unit that connects to the MRI system. And so that's actually part of my portfolio is chillers. And more recently, we worked with a supplier in Brazil to be our main supplier for Latin America. Previously, they'd kind of just done things kind of on their own, and we've decided to standardize, work with one supplier, and offer their products. And so I kind of had to go through all the steps, to get that product qualified by engineering, to set it up with catalog numbers, to work on the pricing, the marketing, kind of all of that with some team in Latin America, and thinking about not just them as a whole region, but thinking about them individually as Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, think about all those countries. So we kind of just hit a big milestone to release the product. And so now we're kind of in the rollout phase. So that's kind of what I'm working on. And so I've got various projects at different phases of Are we in early conversations, or are we rolling them out, or they're already established and I'm just kind of maintaining what's there? So.
Wow, I loved hearing about the very like transformational work that you guys are doing, and especially that impact that y'all are having on real people. I think it's very beautiful to see how that science and technological aspect is impacting real lives. And so now we are going to get some of our questions from our audience members. And so that we can get through them all, I'm going to ask them directly to you guys, and then we'll just do it like that. So, for Kelly, how did you know you wanted to pursue a career in the medical technology field?
So I think like anything with STEM, you've got to be open to the iterative process. So I started off as an architectural engineer. At 18 wasn't really sure my path. I would say biomedical was not even a choice when I applied. So remember, I graduated in 2001. So I took architectural engineering and followed the traditional pathway after that into construction. I think once in construction, I didn't feel as fulfilled in my career. I felt like I wanted to do things that directly impacted people. A personal thing, my mother actually has rheumatoid arthritis, so it's interesting that that trial has come full circle to me. It's like I called it to me. But she's had multiple joints replaced, right? Hips, knees. So it got me to thinking one day, wait a second, I'm an engineer. I can take this over there now, right? This is the traditional pathway to do something. Biomedical is a big thing now, or was by then, by 2010, when I went back for my master's. So yeah, honestly, it was that combination of time in the construction industry to tell me that this wasn't fulfilling me personally, and the maturity to see what would fulfill me in a career, and then figuring out how that merged. So yeah, I went back to UT in 2010 with the specific goal of getting that master's degree in biomechanics so that I could go into medical device. Now, I'll tell you guys, I had to remain open once more, because once I got that degree, I thought for sure somebody's going to hire me and want me to design implants, right? I'm an engineer. I'm going to go sit and design implants or design instruments for surgery. And the clinical research opportunity was a bit of an accident, and it was an internship. And I said, you know what? Yeah, I'll do it. And to further the conversation about STEM, I met with the director of that department for this internship at the Whole Foods downtown in Austin, actually. And he said, we need an intern for the summer. I have someone going on maternity leave. It's in my clinical research department. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know what that is. And he looked down at my resume and he said, you'll be fine. So I want to say that just to tell you guys the power behind what degrees you're looking at here, and the power behind a work experience, following, because he just looked at it and said, you'll be fine. And I was like, oh man, what did I do? So I show up my first day for clinical research, and the rest is history. That was 12 years ago. So I think I knew I wanted into medical devices, but I let myself remain open to what that looked like, right? There's so many options out there, and that's when clinical research came out, and I said, you know what? I don't want to design devices. I want to test them. I want to be on this side of it. I love this piece of it. So I hope that answers the question, but it took me some time to follow the traditional path that everybody told me to at that time, and then to sort of pave my own way. But as soon as I locked onto what it was, I was like, yes, this is it. I need in medical devices.
Awesome. I loved hearing your journey in finding a career in medical technology. For Allison, how do you see your field of work evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Other than rapidly, I definitely see things evolving at a very quick pace. For the pharmaceutical industry in particular, I think there's going to be a lot of evolving in the area of data and in the area of real world data in particular, and how we can leverage AI and machine learning to make the capture and realization of real world data more effective and better. So one of the challenges with using real world data, and that could be things like, your doctor is writing things in your electronic medical record, or they're writing notes for a surgery and, it's paragraphs long. One of the challenges with using that data for a clinical trial or for eventually a regulatory filing to the FDA is the quality of the data. A lot of work goes in on the back end of these clinical trials to go and code all of the data into what it was that the patient actually had. There are very strict lists of things that you can submit to a regulator. They have to follow certain standards. You have to use like the exact right code and the exact right terminology. And so a lot of the challenge with using real world data in a meaningful way from a regulatory perspective is getting that data to a higher quality. So first, using AI and machine learning to do that translation for us. So it's not somebody sitting at a computer typing for months on end, translating all of this data into a coded fashion. So some of that has already started and has taken off, being able to read physician notes and translate that into high quality data. But one of the things, at least that we are working on at Pi Health, is to actually capture better quality data at the point of care and at the physician. So giving the physician the ability to choose exactly the right words and help guide them to say, it's not just diabetes, it's this particular form of diabetes. And so there's less ambiguity at the onset from your physician and from your data collection point. And then you're also creating an efficiency at the back end. So I definitely see a big opportunity in the area of data, and then how we can leverage all of our tools either at the point of care with physicians, or leveraging AI and machine learning to help make data better, which will ultimately lead to better regulatory findings, and then better access and quicker access for your patients.
Perfect. Yes, I know AI is really changing a lot of careers in STEM path. And so I enjoyed hearing how that is also affecting you in your everyday life. So for Erin, how did your previous work experience shape your current career path?
So, prior to my role as a product manager, I had several different roles in kind of different areas. And I like to think each one really kind of comes back to me now. So I've had roles in service. So service, if you think about it, all of those medical devices that GE Healthcare sells, a hospital has to be able to maintain them. They need regular preventative maintenance to keep them working well. And then if they break or they need spare parts, they need to get those. So GE Healthcare's service organization is, the army of people that make sure that those hospitals, their equipment is up and running. And so I worked in service for 5-6 years. Can't remember at this point. I worked in service, and prior to that, I worked in supply chain, and I worked kind of in a few different roles within manufacturing as well as fulfillment. So kind of those different experiences kind of all come into play for my products, because my products that I'm responsible for, I have to also make sure there's a path for service. We're a global company. There's logistics to think about when we're trying to ship things around the world. on how do we stock things in inventory, or do we kind of order them as we need them? How do we ship them around the world? And so my background in supply chain kind of comes into play there. There's some of the items that we sell are actually finished medical devices of another company's. So there's regulatory aspects there where another company owns, they have the FDA registration or the EU medical device registration. And there's just a lot of kind of logistics and customs aspects. But I call back to some of my time when I used to work in a manufacturing facility that would manufacture medical devices for GE. So I kind of pull on all those different things that I've learned throughout my career, really now help me in this role. So it's really a nice, I've really kind of gotten to where I didn't know I wanted to be until I was, applying for this job 2 years ago. And I'm like, this is what I didn't know I wanted when I was in college. But it's kind of all my different experiences have kind of built up to this one. So.
Yes, what you were saying made me think about a lot what Allison was touching on, and how like every job that you have is a learning experience and you're gaining skills that will help you in that career that you finally settle on, or if you decide to move to another one. So we have a lot of questions in our question and answer. So I'm going to give you guys about 3 minutes to go ahead and answer any of them that you guys see. You can type in the answers. And then at 12:55, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you to our fabulous panelists, all of our attendees, Sarasmita, our chat monitor. We look forward to seeing you all at our next Role Model Monday webinar. Next Monday focused on STEM and art design. Watch your email and our social media for links and details. Bye, you guys.
Thank you so much.